Society! This is Tuesday's English video, and today we are going to be thinking about planning our writing, all about how attitudes towards recycling and reducing and reusing our waste have changed over time. So we'll think right back to about 100 years ago when make, do and mend was what people had to do. And then moving forward in time when a throwaway society happened, when people bought things and then just threw them away after they'd used them once. And then right up to the present day when people are becoming a little bit more environmentally conscious and we are thinking about different ways to reduce our waste and different ways of recycling. Okay, so let's get started and see what we can do. So let's start with our make, do and mend section. So back about 80 years ago, when it was in the middle of World War II, people didn't have very much money and there were lots of things in short supply. So they had to make do with what they had and mend things when they were broken. So some examples of things that people used to do back then are, okay, the first one is actually a little bit disgusting. I don't think we would want to do this now, but some people had to use newspaper as toilet roll. So I'm just going to write newspaper, and I'm just going to little arrow and write toilet roll. So we're just writing notes today so we can remember what we want to write about tomorrow. Okay, so newspaper was used as toilet roll. There was somebody who used to come around and collect things from houses, and it was a man called the Rag and Bone Man. Now the Rag and Bone Man used to collect rags and bones. So rags are old pieces of clothing that people don't need anymore, or old sheets or curtains, all sorts of things like that. And bones from the food people have been eating, so maybe chicken bones or something like that. And the rags were turned into new cloths and the bones were actually turned into glue. Okay, the next thing we're going to write on here is sewing clothes. So if something didn't fit you anymore, then it might have been cut up and turned into something new. So that same piece of material, that same piece of clothes might have been a little girl's dress, and then you might have grown out of it. So it might have been cut up and turned into a dress for a baby, or maybe a top for an adult. So people had to be very creative with their clothes. Another thing that we can write about for make, do and mend is having milk delivered. I'm just going to write milk delivery. Because people would have had their milk delivered in glass bottles every morning, the milk they needed for that day, and then they would drink their milk and then put the glass bottle back out on the doorstep, and the next day somebody would come and collect that bottle and bring them a new bottle, and that bottle would have been filled up with milk again, cleaned out first, then filled up with milk, ready to be reused. And the last one I'm going to write about here is mending toys. Or even making toys. I think toys were in such short supply back then that children had to make their own toys out of things like cardboard boxes. So they didn't have lots of toys that they could just go and buy from a shop. And any toys they did have from a shop, if they broke, they would definitely mend so they could keep on playing with them. One other thing is it's kind of linked to the sewing of clothes section, but if you had a knitted jumper that didn't fit you anymore, people would unravel all the knitting so you could get the wool back and then re-knit it into something else. So pause the video now and think of some things that you would like to write about in your make, do and mend section. Some of the things might be the same as mine, or you might have thought of some other things from when you were doing your history a few weeks ago. Okay, off you go. Okay, welcome back. The next section is called a Throwaway Society. Now, a throwaway society just means people had things and then just threw them away. And when things get thrown away, they end up in landfill sites. And a landfill site is just a big hole in the ground where lots of rubbish goes, and then when it's full, it gets covered over and there's a new hole that gets filled up. And landfill sites are not very good because things just stay in those holes for ever and ever and ever, and sometimes they leak nasty chemicals into the environment, and that can harm the animals and the plants. So pause the video and see if you can think of some things that might end up in landfill sites. A good thing to think about here is a term called single use. So things that are used once and then they get thrown away. So pause the video, see what you can think of, and then come back to me and I'll talk about a few things that I've thought of. Off you go. Hello, welcome back. So I have probably got a lot more on my plan than you will have, and that is absolutely fine. I just wanted to give you lots of ideas. Okay, so you might just have 3 things or 4 things, and that is absolutely fine. So let's have a look to see what I thought of. I have got wet wipes. So wet wipes are used just once and then they are thrown away, and they don't break down, so they will stay in the landfill side forever. Wet wipes are sometimes used for washing faces, bodies, or you can get wet wipes that are used to clean surfaces. But neither of them are very good for the environment because they get used once and then just thrown away. The next thing I thought of are fruit shoot bottles or similar little drinks cartons. So you would use one of these once to have a drink and then that gets thrown away. A much better thing to do is to have a reusable water bottle that you can fill up with your squash or your water rather than having a new bottle every day. I also thought about squeezy yogurts. Some of you have those in your lunch boxes, and they're not very good for the environment either because you squeeze the yogurt out, you eat your yogurt, and then the tube just goes in the bin. Then I thought about paper or plastic plates and cups, the sort of thing you might have at a birthday party. And the worst type of these actually are the plates and cups made of polystyrene, because that is terrible for the environment. So they just get used once and then they get thrown away. And the last thing I thought of is technology. So over the last 50 years, technology has changed a lot. Mobile phones have been invented, computers, and they get updated and upgraded all the time. So if somebody has a new idea and makes a mobile phone or a tablet or something a little bit better, and then everyone wants the newest version, and the old versions often end up just being thrown away, and they can end up in landfill sites as well. So technology is a big thing that contributes to a throwaway society. Okay, pause the video now, and if you want to add anything to your section, you can. If not, we're going to move on to the next section. Okay, the final section is all about being environmentally conscious. Now, those are 2 very long words. So environmentally, it just means thinking about the environment or the world around you. And conscious means thinking about it, making decisions that mean you can help the environment. Okay, so let's think of some examples of how you can be environmentally conscious. How can you think about looking after the environment? a good idea would be to think about the 3 R's. So things that we can reduce, so things you can use less of, things you can reuse, and things you can recycle. Okay, so you might think of things for each of those categories. Off you go. Okay, so my first example of something you can reduce, or a way you can reduce your rubbish, is a zero waste shop. There is a zero waste shop in the town hall in Trowbridge Town Centre, and it's a shop where you take your own containers. So if you want to go and buy some pasta or some rice, or even some shower gel or some soap, you can take your own container to the shop and they will fill it up for you. So you're not creating any waste of packaging. You're not getting a plastic bottle or a packet that is just going to end up in the bin. You are reducing the amount of waste you make. Another way you can reduce your waste is by buying in bulk. So you might buy one big tub of yoghurt and then empty it a little bit out into a pot each day, rather than buying a new yoghurt pot for every day of the week. Or you might buy a big bottle of squash and pour a little bit out into your bottle for every day. Another example would be buying a big share packet of crisps and then putting a little handful into a little Tupperware box for you to have for your lunch each day, so you're not having a new crisp packet every day. So moving on to reusing things. One of the things I thought of are shopping bags. So you might have something like a bag for life, or even a stronger bag, a bag made from material that you can take to the shop every time you go, instead of buying a new bag every time. Another example is reusing containers from your kitchen, so a butter tub or a jam jar, and decorating them and using them to store other things in. The final R is recycle. Reduce, reuse, recycle. So things we can recycle include, we can recycle glass and paper and metal, and all of these things can go into our recycling boxes and they get taken away, or our recycling bins, and they get taken away by the council and they get turned into new things. So glass gets turned into new glass. A glass jar can get melted down and turned into a new glass jar. Paper or cardboard gets mushed up with some water and then all pressed out again nice and neatly, and it gets turned into new paper. And metal, exactly the same. So it might be tin foil or tin cans, your old baked bean cans. They all get melted down and turned back into new metal things. And plastic bottles as well, they can get turned into new plastic bottles. Now, there is another type of recycling, which is a relatively new type of recycling. It's where something can get turned into something new, but not the same thing as it was before. And we've started doing quite a bit of this at school. As you know, we collect crisp packets at school. And now they can't be recycled and turned into new crisp packets, but they can get turned into strange things like benches that you can sit on. They get melted down into little plastic pellets, and then they get all put together to turn into benches. If you think about our playground at school, all of the brightly coloured benches, the ones that aren't wooden, they are actually made from recycled crisp packets. So crisp packets get turned into benches. Plastic bottles can sometimes get turned into jumpers. they can be made into a material or a fabric called fleece. Some of you might have a fleecy jumper, and they will have been made from recycled plastic. Okay, pause the video now and add anything extra that you would like to your environmentally conscious section. Off you go. And the last thing we need to do is think of some vocabulary that can help us for each section. Now, these are going to be time adverbs, okay, things that tell us when things happened. So if you pause the video and have a look at the PDF that will help you with today's learning, there are some examples of time adverbs. I would like you to look through them and choose some for each section. So these are going to be things that were a long time ago. These are things that are not so long ago, and some things from this section still happen now. And these are things that are really modern and looking into the future. Okay, so have a look and see what you can think of. Off you go. So for make, do and mend, I have written a long time ago, and in the past, and when my nan was little. Although for lots of you it will probably be when your great nan or your great granddad was little. Okay, because you're a little bit younger than me. And then for the Throwaway Society, I've written a while ago, and I've written sometimes, because actually a lot of this is still happening. And I wrote unfortunately, because all of these things are not good for the environment. They are quite unfortunate, so I thought that would be a good way to start a sentence. And for the last section, environmentally conscious, I have written nowadays, because these things are happening now. And I've put in the future, because I think all of these things will improve in the future. There will be more of this going on in the future as people become more environmentally conscious. And I've written hopefully, because I'm hopeful that lots more of these things will happen and a lot less of this will happen. And I actually think a lot of this could come back, and we might start doing a lot more of this. I know some people have started having their milk delivered in glass bottles again. I know some people think about not wasting their old clothes and turning them into something new. This one though, I don't think this one's going to come back. I don't think that we will start using newspaper as toilet roll. That's one thing I think I'm happy to throw away. Okay, well done everybody. I'm sure you have worked really hard on your plan today. You might not have quite as much information on yours, and that is absolutely fine. I've written loads of information to give you lots of ideas. So as long as you've got 3 things I would aim for on each section, that is absolutely fine. So keep this safe, ready for tomorrow, and we will use this to start writing our report. So tomorrow we're going to write make, do and mend. Then the next day we're going to write about a throwaway society, and the day after that we're going to write about being environmentally conscious. Okay, bye!